So with the Battle of Berlin coming out pretty soon to open beta testing, I'm going to be talking about some of my biggest tips I've learned from the Battle of Berlin CBT. So the first tip I kind of want to do is not really a tip, it's more of just a general statement about the Battle of Berlin. But Battle of Berlin is a very close quarters map with the majority of the map being inside buildings, but there are some open areas where tanks and planes can do really well. That's pretty much the description of the Battle of Berlin campaign. For my first tip for the Battle of Berlin is to get the engineer fast as you can and start putting down respawn beacons. In Berlin, you can hide respawn beacons very well from the enemy, and majority of the time, unless you put them in the open, they will never be destroyed if you place them properly, which means your team has a big advantage whenever it comes to respawning, especially for the German team, since the meta right now is pretty much for Russia to press W and not hold back. For the second tip I want to give is the buildings in Berlin are mainly two-story buildings, which means these buildings you can jump out of. And you'll take some fall damage, but you'll still be able to keep fighting and you'll be able to get to an objective quickly. So don't be afraid of fall damage whenever it comes to if you're 2 stories high, unless you already have took a lot of damage. This is really strong when it comes to like if you respawn from a spawn beacon and you're on a second story and you need to go to an objective fast to either cap it or to contest the enemy from capping it. The third tip I want to give for the Battle of Berlin campaign is the bomber. The bomber in the Battle of Berlin is very good compared to the other campaigns. You get the both sides get the Panzerfaust 60, which is able to take out many tanks on the battlefield. And in my opinion right now, I think taking the bomber over a radio operator is even good, or even like the sniper, take the bomber. The Panzerfaust 60 gives you a good range compared to the TNT grenade. But as well as I would just take the TNT grenade and pretty much kill the enemy tanks as well. Because in the Battle of Berlin campaign for the TNT grenade, tanks are really slow. So you're able to just run up to the side of them with pretty much any troop and throw TNT grenades underneath a Panther, even the T-34-85. The next thing I'll talk about is the tanks in the Battle of Berlin campaign. So the tanks are very different from the other campaigns because you start to get very powerful guns like the T-34-85, which can take out a lot of infantry with its HE shell with a single shot, as well as do massive damage to other tanks. In the Battle of Berlin campaign, being one shot by a tank is very common if you're in a tank yourself, because with these guns, you're having like 85 millimeters penetrate you with an APHE. Compared to other campaigns which have much smaller caliber weapons, or if they have large caliber weapons like the Normandy campaign with the 75 mil, it's a very weak 75 mil. As well as one area where Russia does struggle is in the air power department. 100 kg bombs are really good for taking out infantry, but really bad whenever it comes to tanks. The 37mm on the IL-2-37 does do a decent amount of damage towards infantry. So don't be afraid to start firing whenever you're coming in for your strafing run with the bombs. And you can kind of like pinpoint where the enemy is at if you don't have people spotting for you. Whenever it comes to Germany, they do have a bunch of powerful bombs. Most of the time, this is really powerful on the start of the invasion maps. Whenever you're on the bridge and you have a opportunity to bomb all the Russians on the bridge. The last tip I want to give for the Battle of Berlin campaign is it's very close quarters. Like every single map you play on, you will have some sort of building with some sort of choke point. So the Molotov Cocktail is actually a very powerful tool whenever it comes to getting capture points or keeping the enemy away from capture points. Molotov cocktails burn for about 30 seconds, is able to hold off a choke point itself. Some good places to throw these is when the enemy is rushing objectives. And you can throw it into where they normally come from. It makes them either go around or it makes them have to find a different way to come into the map or come into the objective. A good place to throw them is on this one map. I forgot what it's called, but it's like you have a bunch of capture points. It's a conquest map, and it's has like 5 or 6 capture points, and you're able to throw it in a hallway in the main building, and you're able to pretty much keep the enemy infantry away. Other than that, I think those are the biggest things for the Battle of Berlin campaign. If you've not played it so far, I think the biggest tip that anyone can do is you just need to play it and learn the maps, learn different flanking routes to go through for each objective. If you're playing Germany, learn good defensive positions and good places to put respawn beacons. Because the first tip in this tip guide is basically find a good place to put respawn beacons. Because respawn beacons in Enlisted are one of the most powerful tools in the game. And for Berlin, it is even more powerful since you're able to pretty much put them in places where the enemy will never find them. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys on the Battle of Berlin campaign.